And joining me now is Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs, member of the House Judiciary Committee. Hi, Congressman. How are you?
Hi. Great. How are you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing well. And Congressman, you also recently sat down with the president on Saturday to talk about this very issue. So what is it going to take to break this stalemate?
Well, what's going to take is Chuck Schumer is going to have to bite the bullet, and they're going to have to fund the wall. They need to pay $5 billion, which is a substantial reduction from the $25 billion that it will take to actually build the wall. They need to move. It's all in Chuck Schumer's court right now. There's nothing on the president's desk to veto or sign. This is Chuck Schumer's shutdown right now.
What incentive do you think Democrats have to come to the table or to negotiate or to give President Trump any funding? You know, Nancy Pelosi is going to take over likely as Speaker of the House just next week, and Democrats are going to have control of the House. So, you know, what incentive do they have to play ball here?
What's going to incentivize them are two things, is if they really love this country and recognize that the border is insecure right now and that we have to have a wall. That's one thing. The other thing that I think will do it is if they realize that their base are a number of bureaucrats, and they're the ones who aren't getting paid in the shutdown, and they're going to get some pressure from their base to come to the table. And the reality is they're the ones that have chosen to shut this down, actually, not the president.
Well, and, you know, Congressman, isn't this really a lot of this about politics? Because the way I see it, you look at a lot of Democrats, including Senator Chuck Schumer, they voted for fencing along the southern border. Clearly, they're not against some sort of physical structure being along the southern border. So isn't the wall just a semantics game and a politics game? Isn't this just about denying President Trump that key campaign promise that he made?
Yeah, you know, I actually, believe it or not, I have friends in Congress who are Democrats, and we talk, and I asked them, I said, what's the deal here? One lives by a border wall. I said, what's going on? I said, won't you give us anything for a border wall? I live in a border state. We're concerned. And they said, well, you know what? One said, I don't like the rhetoric that President Trump uses. And the other one said, we're not going to give President Trump a victory. And so what I'm telling you is, it is politics, Lisa. That's the problem, is they don't want President Trump to have a victory. And in so doing, they're preventing this country from having the safety. When I hear people, just today even, some more people from the border telling me, Andy, they're crossing our property. We've got to have border wall. And you know what? That's what we need to do, not politics. We need good policy, which includes a border wall.
Well, and speaking of the policy aspect, even beyond the wall, the big crisis we're facing right now on the southern border is asylum seekers. And we've seen a massive influx in people seeking asylum from Central America. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about what's going on with asylum seekers and why we are seeing this influx of Central Americans doing just that?
Well, what's happening is when an asylum seeker comes across the border, we do an immediate little evaluation, and then they end up staying. We can't keep them longer than 20 days. And so we can't process them because the influx is so great. I mean, there's thousands upon thousands. And so, for instance, in the Phoenix metro area, there's been almost 4,000 of them released since October until about 2 weeks ago. That's the total from 2 weeks ago that are coming here seeking asylum. They're released into the interior. We pay for them to go wherever they want to go because we can't afford to hold them. And that's what's happening, is catch and release, and we're giving them a notice. Please come back, we say, for your court hearing to prove that you really are someone who qualifies. And you know what? Almost 90% of them don't even qualify for asylum, yet they're already here in this country. Most of them never go back for their hearing. That's what's going on with the asylum policy that we have today.
Well, and something that's not really been reported as much is this deal with Mexico and keeping asylum seekers in Mexico while they're waiting for their immigration cases, because as you pointed out, 90% don't actually get granted asylum in immigration court. And the problem is a lot of them go missing in between that time and when their cases come up. So why is this so important?
Well, if you can keep them in Mexico, which, by the way, has offered asylum, like, for instance, to the caravan, most of the asylum seekers, they've offered them asylum. If you keep them there, then it gives us time to process them before they get released into the interior, because once they're released in the interior, they're effectively lost until they commit a crime or something like that, where we can actually track them down and ICE can get hold of them, except for unless there's a sanctuary city that's not going to cooperate with ICE. So we have all kinds of obstacles that keep us from actually controlling the folks that are coming into our country. That's why the Mexico, keeping them there until they're ready to come in or qualified to come in is so important, because it's going to reduce the number of people who come into this country illegally that we can't track, we can't vet, we don't know who they are.
Is Congress doing anything to address the asylum issues we're seeing?
We have basically put together a series of bills. I know the Freedom Caucus has put together some ideas and some bills to try to get this going. But the first thing that has to happen really is the border wall. And when I talk to my Border Patrol agents here, they say, Andy, we need the Border Patrol, we need the border wall first. Because once we have the border wall, it's going to actually put people into a channel so they're coming to the ports of entry. We can control it better. And then we can start dealing with interior problems like asylum.
Well, real quick, how long do you think this shutdown is going to last?
Well, since the president's holding firm and the Democrats have said they're not willing to budge on this, I would think we're going to go at least a couple of weeks, actually.
All right. Well, Congressman, I really appreciate you joining us and giving us some insight on this issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.